Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars. You're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, I'll have earned the honor and privilege of your subscription. In today's video, I wanted to respond to a challenge that I got from Matt over at Texas Toast Guitars. And let me give you a little backstory before I explain what that challenge is. A while back, I did a video where I talked about some of the different ways that you can pursue in order to become a professional luthier. And one of those methods that I explained was that you could attend a school that teaches the art of luthery. And one such school is the Roberto Venn School of Luthery. Well, as it turns out, Matt saw that video and he commented, and he mentioned in his comment that he had gone to the Roberto Venn School of Luthery. But that was back, he graduated, I think it was in the late 80s. And ever since then, he really hasn't used a lot of the methods and techniques that they teach at the school. He had developed his own, which makes sense. That's what a lot of us luthiers tend to do. Over time, we develop our own methods and techniques that we feel is most effective and most efficient for building guitars, and that allow for the most creativity. Well, just the other day, Matt posted a video where he mentioned that video that I had made where I talked about Roberto Venn. And he said that he had gotten a chance to think about it, and he realized that he still does use some of the techniques that they teach at the Roberto Venn School of Luthery. And he sort of explained what some of those are. But then he issued a challenge to me where he asked me to describe some of the techniques that I use today that I was using way in the past when I first started building guitars. Now, I didn't go to a school to learn how to build guitars. I'm totally self-taught. But I started out using old school tools and techniques, many of which I read about in books, because at the time, there was no YouTube. The internet was in its fledgling state. And I had to kind of learn through trial and error, the different ways that we build guitars. And gradually I developed my own methods, techniques, and processes for building guitars. But then about 8 years ago, I made the transition over to CNC, which I, at the time, was thinking was going to totally change how I build guitars. But as it turns out, it really didn't. I mean, it did to an extent, but I found that the best way to use CNC technology is to combine the old school techniques with the new school techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you out to my workshop, and I'm going to show you basically some of those techniques that I started using in the very beginning that I still use to this day, and don't really see myself getting rid of anytime soon. So let's head out to the shop and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we are in my workshop, and this is, of course, my CNC machine. You've probably seen me using this quite a bit. But then over here, I have all of the tools that I have amassed over the last 20-some years. In fact, I think probably the oldest tool in here is that old Delta drill press. It's so old that the table broke, and I had to replace it with one that I made myself. And it's worked out really well. Actually, it's worked better than the original table. But that machine is a good 25, 30 years old. And then I've got my bandsaw. It's a 14-inch bandsaw with the riser kit on it that I purchased probably 20-some years ago from Harbor Freight, and it's worked great. Then I've got my planer, my joiner, couple of sanders. I've got an oscillating spindle sander, and then my 4x36 belt sander. And then, of course, I've got my home-built buffing machine, and a couple of compressors. Then I've got my wall of tools, and these are mostly old school hand tools. You can see I've got a lot of different kinds of chisels, different files, rasps, I've even got my old spoke shave here, and I haven't used this in years, but it's there if I ever need it. You know, if the CNC machine goes down, I can carve necks with my spoke shave. And then I've got, this is the old fret saw that I used years and years ago. It's starting to get some rust on the blade. But when it comes to actually building guitars using the techniques that I rely on today, most of the work is still done with my CNC machine. And I'm using that to cut the shape of guitar bodies, route any pockets, and carve the contour shapes. I also use it to make the fretboard. I can carve the radius, I can slot the fretboard, I can do all that kind of work. But before I can actually cut the parts with this machine, I have to prepare the blanks, and that requires cutting the wood with my table saw, and then planing it with my planer, and then if I'm gluing pieces together, like if I'm making a body, which most of the bodies I make are two-piece body blanks, I have a joiner down underneath here. This is a flip top work stand, and I've got a couple of those, and I use those for saving space. On this one, I've got my sanders on the top, and then I've got a downdraft table underneath it. So I can save quite a bit of space. In fact, I build a lot of the tools myself, like my flip top stands, my buffing machine. And years ago, I had a really big thickness sander, drum sander. And I had that for a number of years, but then I decided I wasn't using it very much. So I disassembled it to conserve space. But I'm thinking about making another one. It's just how it works out. But obviously what I've been doing is combining the new school technology with my CNC machine with the old school technology, using all the old power tools and hand tools that I have amassed over the years. So I think that's probably, for me at least, the best way to work. When I first bought my CNC machine, and I've had 3 of them. I had an Inventables X-Carve, then I built my own CNC machine, which is now residing underneath this table. I'm thinking about repurposing some of that for another project. We'll see. But then I got the X-Carve Pro, and so I've had 3 different machines over the years. And when I first got into CNC, my initial thought was, I'm going to use this machine to replace all of this stuff, and then I can just save a lot of space. As it turns out, I found that wasn't necessarily the most efficient way to work. Let me give you a really good example. Most of the guitar necks that I make have an angled headstock. And drilling tuner holes in an angled headstock is very difficult to do with a CNC machine, especially if it's just a 3-axis CNC machine, which is what most commercial CNC machines are. In order to drill holes into an angled headstock, there's really 2 approaches. One is that you would get a 4-axis CNC machine, or you would build a fixture that's designed to hold the headstock so that it's flat to the table and allows you to drill those holes with the CNC machine. Otherwise, with a 3-axis machine, you simply can't drill holes at an angle. Well, as it turns out, the easiest, most efficient way to do it is to rough carve the neck on the CNC machine. And when it's done, I just walk it over to the drill press and select the appropriate drill bit and drill the tuner holes myself. It just takes literally a couple of minutes at the most. So that's a great example of how I combine the new school tools with the old school tools. It's just the best way to do it. And there are other little minor details that you wouldn't consider. For example, when you're cutting a pocket, like a neck pocket with a CNC machine, because the bit is round, the corners are going to be round. And if you need a 90-degree corner, the only thing you can do is, once you've finished carving those pockets, routing them on the CNC machine, is you would grab a chisel and chisel out those corners to make them a 90-degree sharp corner instead of a rounded corner. So just little details like that. And then sometimes I prefer drilling the holes for mounting the bridge and any string through holes after I've done all the work on making the body and the neck, because the reality is oftentimes things will shift. They'll move a little bit. A neck might shift a little, and it's always best, I think, well, not always, but oftentimes it's best to assemble the guitar with the neck and the fretboard and the body all together, and then plot, position, and drill the holes for mounting the bridge later, so that you don't run into that problem of misalignment. So that's another example of how we combine the new school with the old school. But I'll admit, if somebody told me I had to get rid of these tools, or if for some reason I decided I needed to get rid of them and was just going to use nothing but the CNC machine, I probably could do it. Although, even with the CNC, and if I was able to establish processes that would allow me to use just the CNC machine, I still would have to do a lot of handwork in terms of sanding and that sort of thing. So I really think no matter how you approach it, there's still going to be a need for combining modern technology with the old technology. So it really helps to know how to do both. And for those of you who want to become luthiers, it really is going to benefit you to know both of those. And I would think that, or I would imagine that a lot of the modern school programs that teach guitar building or any sort of woodworking are these days probably going to emphasize the use of both the modern technologies and the old technologies, because that's just how things are being done today, and you can't escape it. I remember when I first started using CNC machines to build guitars, I would get a comment section filled with complaints from people about me using CNC technology, how I was cheating and all this sort of thing. As the years have passed, that's gone away. People just don't criticize it anymore. I think people are getting used to the idea that this technology is here to stay and it's not going to go anywhere. So at any rate, that's how I combine my old school techniques with the new school techniques. Well, I hope that I responded to that challenge in an adequate fashion. When Matt first issued the challenge, my reaction was, what a great idea, because this is something that our viewers could really learn from. So I think what I've got to do now is I've got to come up with a challenge to issue to Matt. And I'm not sure what that's going to be or when I'm going to do it. I do know that Matt and I are going to try to do a collaboration together, probably at his workshop. And, you know, that may involve doing a video where we sit down and talk about guitar building in general. I'm not sure. I've got to get in touch with him and iron out those details, but that's something that's coming in the future. So I would highly recommend that you subscribe to my channel and to Texas Toast's channel. That way you won't miss out on whatever it is that we decide to do down the road. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to take your support for my channel to the next level, be sure to visit eguitarplans.com or my Highland Guitars merch store. And there's links in the description below. And at either one of those sites, you can purchase plans for building guitars, the tools that we use to build guitars, t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, that kind of thing. And any amount that you spend on either of those sites is going to help to support this channel so that I can keep building guitars and sharing my knowledge and experience with all of you. So if you want to keep it simple, you can just click the thanks button down below and leave a tip in the amount that you think is fair. And here's a hint. If you've got a question that you really want me to answer about guitar building, leave a tip and include your question with it, and I promise I'll answer it. So as always, take care, stay safe, and I hope you'll be back for more guitar building videos.